All right. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Victoria. We really appreciate having you on. We know that you and your organization are making a lot of impact across the country, so we're excited to learn a little bit more about you and get some tips and tricks from you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our first question is: we know that you're in multiple competitive states.
Mhm.
How does your team go about gaining new clients, and what is working best for you right now?
Well, so I guess my question would be in regards to clients, because I recruit strictly for Family Care Center. So we are outpatient behavioral health. So let's see, as far as I think maybe you mean, how do we find our practitioners, or is
We can
that
answer. We can go either way. We can go either
well,
way.
because
If
as
yeah,
far
we
as
can go either
finding
way.
our clients for our clinics, but we have a marketing team that's out in all of the neighborhoods that we have our clinics in. So, in each of those neighborhoods, we'll have a marketing team that's out, and they're connecting with other practitioners, other hospitals, other clinics. They're going to events that are professionally specific for, say, therapists or psychiatrists or whatever, and letting them know that, we have a clinic, an outpatient behavioral health clinic in your neighborhood, and so you guys can send your referrals over to us. So that would be one way. Otherwise, I think mainly for our clients in our clinic, so it's going to be referrals coming in, or I guess word of mouth as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. So you guys follow a very organic grassroots approach, which makes a lot of sense. Makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah,
Um, so our next question is specifically about your specialty, which is about recruitment.
yeah.
What have you found is the hardest part of gaining new staff, especially the ones that fit your team's culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a challenge, because culture is super important, and just like anywhere else, when you're sitting when you're working with someone for several hours a day, everybody wants to make sure that they get along. So, I think that, we just are generally speaking, we are looking for someone who is going to fit our culture, and that is going to be someone who's got a, positive attitude, wants to work with a multidisciplinary team, and is, can be flexible with their schedule. We're Monday through Friday. We're not on the weekends. We're not after hours. It's just kind of a general Monday through Friday schedule there. So that's really kind of, we just want someone who's really going to be focused on our clients and their care, as well as, kind of being a good team player and working with the other practitioners in the clinic.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've recruited everywhere, from in recruitment with Meta to now mental health clinics. What is one thing that you have found top talent almost always is looking for? What's one thing that almost always matters to them?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be leadership. Leadership is always going to be number one. They want to make sure that you are talking the talk and walking the walk at the same time. A lot of our, like you said, it doesn't matter if I was recruiting for Meta. It doesn't matter if I was recruiting for Western Union or now here at Family Care Center. They want to make sure that when you say work-life balance, you mean it. They want to make sure that when you say culture matters to us, you mean it. And they really look for that. In addition to that, benefits and PTO and all that kind of usual stuff, but really leadership, and making sure that they are walking the walk and talking the talk, and doing what they say really, really counts a lot for everybody, no matter what the role, really.
Absolutely. The cultural values on the wall are always nice, but they don't mean a lot in comparison to the actual values that people live when they're
Well,
in the
sure, you
organization.
could, right, you could say your work-life balance all day long, but when people have a panic attack when their boss messages them, it doesn't
On Saturday
matter.
night, it doesn't so much
Exactly.
mean the same thing. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. So from sourcing a psychiatrist to doing wedding photography, you clearly see people very deeply. How has your creative side shaped your recruiting style or even your leadership style?
Yeah. As far as I think my recruiting style goes, I think it just allows me to maybe look at everybody. I don't know. I don't want to say differently, but I don't know. I guess maybe I'm able to look at some people and see some things that, maybe your skills aren't directly related to, our field, but maybe you've got some transferable skills or some other skills that may be relatable. So maybe being able to look at somebody outside of like the typical box for that role might be a way that I maybe see people a little bit differently or reach out to someone that maybe somebody else wouldn't. As far as my leadership style goes, I mean, I definitely think that, I lead by example. I've always led by example. I'm attracted to leaders who lead by example. So I think again that, if you are going to ask your team to sit down and make 100 phone calls a day, then you should also be making 100 phone calls a day. That's just kind of how I've always done it. And I don't, I'm not going to ask somebody to do something I wouldn't do myself. So, and as far as being creative goes, I don't know, maybe it just allows me to think and do things a little bit differently. But, I think as far as for sourcing and recruiting, again, just being able to look at somebody and they may not be directly related, but be able to maybe see some of those skills or some of those words in their resume that may trigger me to think, oh, you know what, they might be a fit for this after all. So, just having a more open mind, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe
Or
it doesn't help me at
maybe
all.
yeah, yeah. Maybe it's also about seeing people's personality from things that tend to be very dry, like resumes, right? I think that's
Yes.
something that all good recruiters are really good at doing, right? Is kind of seeing past the
Yeah.
buzzwords in the resume and be like, okay, here's what this person actually cares about. Here's what they actually focus on.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the resumes say a lot. And I was thinking about it this morning. I think I've looked at over 1 million resumes in my career, considering I've been doing this for about 15 years now. And I'm looking at almost 100, a lot, a day, a week. So yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of resumes, and yeah, a resume says a lot.
Absolutely.
More than just the words on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we all know that behavioral health hiring is very, very, very competitive. What is one of the more unconventional sourcing tactics that's worked well for you?
Yeah, obviously we love referrals, and so sourcing, through our team is a great way to find good people. Outside of that, it is very challenging. And especially, for like a state like Colorado, where talent is scarce, we really do have to be creative and think outside the box and kind of think of like, how can we pull people in? And so a lot of that is looking at schools, doing some maybe internships and reaching out through that way. But it's really doing some like out of state marketing, and maybe pulling some people in for a relocation. It's really hard. It's hard to, poaching is not some, we're not supposed to be doing that, and it's not a cool thing to do. And there's a lot of that going on. But the way I look at it is, I don't know. It's a challenge right now. It's a tough challenge because cost of living is high and people are worried about that, and then moving someone across the state is challenging. We do offer relocation for any therapists listening that want to move to Colorado and work, or want to move to Texas and work. We'll relocate you. But you do have to get creative, and we have to, like, our marketing has to be creative, and our outreach has to be to everybody everywhere. You can't just think, well, I'm recruiting for Denver, so I'm just going to look at Denver. No, I'm recruiting for Denver. I have to look everywhere. I have to look at maybe people who are living in California that maybe went to school in Denver. There's so much to look at and to think about, and you really have to cast the widest net possible and just do whatever and everything.
Well, and you have to focus on what actually matters to people, right? Because it's different for different demographics care about different things, different generations care about different things. So you can't just have our pay is X and our benefits include ABC, because some groups, some audiences like Gen Z and millennials just don't care about the technical benefits near as much as they care about the work-life balance, the structure, the culture, the values, the environment that they work in. That matters a lot more to them than kind of the
Yeah.
dollars and cents.
Well, and just like we ask our candidates to tailor their resume to the job description, we definitely have to tailor our outreach to the person that we're reaching out to. And that's correct, right? I mean, if I'm looking at someone who may be older and further along in their career, reaching out to them about, is going to be targeted differently but getting them to relocate across the country might not be an option for someone who has a family, as opposed to someone who's younger and fresh out of their career. They may be like, yes, I'm all for a relocation. They don't have a family, they don't have a spouse or kids or an attachment to a school or whatever. So, yes, in that respect, we definitely have to look at the person individually and kind of figure out, well, what's going to grab them and bring them and get their attention. And yeah, sometimes it is kind of a case by case sourcing basis in that
Yeah,
respect, for sure. Yeah.
I'm sure it's not an easy challenge no matter what. Um, no matter what the kind of ideal profile you're targeting is, I'm sure it's not an easy fit. What has worked? Obviously, you have worked across big tech, healthcare, banking, kind of in multiple industries, almost always in leadership. What is a leadership lesson that you've learned
Yeah.
through all of those roles that you try to apply every day?
Yeah. I think that it's really easy to get discouraged every day, right? You're coming in and sometimes it feels like Groundhog Day, or sometimes you feel like I've reached out to 100 people yesterday and not a single person has responded to me, or, whatever. And so it's very easy to get discouraged and kind of want to throw your hands up in the air. So, you know, being able to keep a positive attitude about what you're doing, and a lot of times that maybe means you have to get up and go for a walk in the middle of the day, right? And take 5 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or whatever that is to just kind of refocus and reset. But supporting your team, having a good attitude, being there, and if you can't, like, the one of the best things that I've always, that I've taken through all of it is, if you're stuck, it's okay to go to your team and say, you guys, you know what? I'm stuck. Like, I need fresh ideas. I need fresh eyes, whatever that may be. If you're trying to search for something and, in my field, putting together a Boolean string and you're like, I need fresh ideas. Or you're putting together a presentation and you've looked at the same thing 100 times and your eyes just aren't catching whatever it is, and you just need that second set of eyes to look at it and give you that fresh perspective. That's a good thing to do. It doesn't Asking for help isn't a weakness. Reaching out to your team does not mean that you're failing. Your team is there to support you. You're there to support them. We all need to collaborate, and that's how we win, is by working together. And asking for help is not a negative, and everyone should look at it that way.
I think that is a very good lesson to have learned and to apply. Asking for help is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Well, perfect. That is a good question for us to end on. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate getting some of your experience, and we appreciate all the work that you do for all of us professionals out there in the world that have to go through the hiring process.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for taking time out.
Thank you.